This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and occasionally I'll be bringing you some bonus episodes highlighting some amazing individuals who are participating in some fun outdoor events or helping some incredible nonprofits, as well as some up-and-coming outdoor companies. And in today's episode, we have another Season 2 guest making a return to the podcast. His name is Riley, otherwise known as Fry Pocket on the PCT and on Instagram. This is our longest single episode recording at just under 2 hours, and we barely scratch on Riley's experience on the PCT. He shares with us how it was leading up to visiting and starting off at the Southern Terminus, how a mountain pass fortified his relationship with his trail family, and what it was like hiking through the record snowpack of the Sierras. Without further ado, let's dive right into this episode featuring our guest, Riley. Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. We have another returning guest. His name is Riley, a.k.a. Fry Pocket. It's been nearly 9 months since he came on the podcast to share about his hiking experiences in and around Utah, as well as his prep work leading up to hitting the PCT this summer. We'll get into all things PCT here in a bit, but Riley, I just want to welcome you back to the podcast and just ask how you've been and how has the fall season been treating you?
That's good to be back. I'm excited to tell some more stories about hiking. So the fall season's been good. I got off the PCT in middle of September and then I just kept living outside. But I'm back to work now. It's the end of November and I guess it's December now. I lost track of time, but back to work now, unfortunately, but it's just reality but life's good. And I had an epic year. I can't wait to share about it.
I mean, you hit the ground running literally in Utah, where you kind of got back into some canyoneering, right? Down in southern Utah?
Oh yeah, as soon as I got done with the PCT, I came home and did a little bit of hiking, and then I went straight into canyoneering and hunting, and I tried to spend as much time as I could outside adventuring until I ran out of money and needed to go to work. So I definitely did. I think I did probably 10 canyons over the course of that two months, and then I went on numerous hunting trips. So yeah, it was a good way to transition from trail life and ease into what I guess you could call normal life is. It just eased myself into that. It definitely made it. It wasn't an abrupt change going from the PCT to work. I eased into it. Yeah. So I'm glad I did that.
And do you feel like, because last time you were on the podcast, you had shared that you were getting into canyoneering. Now that you got, 15 more canyons underneath you, is that something that you'll kind of build into your yearly routine and go down to southern Utah or maybe other places and get some canyoneering done?
Oh yeah, I love canyoneering. It's just, to me, it just brings this extra sense of adventure to outdoors, where it's a little more intense than just going on a hike. You're going on a hike, but also you have technicalities to deal with and you have added danger. But as long as you know what you're doing and have practice and are with competent people that you trust, and I mean, it's safe as safe as it can be when you do that. But it's just this extra sense of adventure that I crave, and I really, really enjoy it. Canyoneering is super cool, and the
Yeah.
people I've met doing it just in this short amount of time are awesome people. So yeah, I'm hooked. I'll probably be a canyoneer for a very long time.
Right on.
I'm
Well,
starting to get more comfortable. I learned a whole lot doing those 15 canyons. I really made it a point to try to absorb as much information as I could and learn. So I actually set up a lot of the retrievable rappels, and I ended up buying almost all the gear I need to do it now. And so I have my own rope and descenders and everything now. Definitely, I need to get a lot more experience before I feel comfortable leading a canyon. But as far as
mhm.
like I feel comfortable doing pretty much any canyon as long as I'm with people who know what they're doing and I trust them, you know. But I have my
Yeah,
limitations, but I'm definitely growing in that sport and I love it.
right on. And what areas of southern Utah were you canyoneering through?
Escalante and the North Wash area, which is south of Hanksville, Utah. So down by Lake Powell, basically. Clear down
Yeah,
there, yeah.
yeah. Man, Hanksville, I got a chance to visit Hanksville earlier this year, and just in and around Hanksville, the landscape is just so drastic, and I can only imagine in places where you need a canyoneer in order to reach it. It just continues to be amazing.
Oh yeah. I love it down there. When I went down there, I think I camped around Hanksville for like 12 days and I did some hiking in the Henry Mountains, which is right next to Hanksville. And then I did a bunch of canyons and just explored around there. And Hanksville's awesome. It's one of my favorite little areas in Utah now. I hadn't spent a ton of time down there previously, but being down there for 12 straight days and just doing either canyons or hiking every single day, I was like, I love this place. So it's in my top like three places in Utah now for sure.
Right on. Yeah, I might have to agree with you on that one. Now, Riley, for listeners that, you know, haven't had a chance, or to help listeners and remind them about the journey that you took to start the PCT, can you give us a little background on how that idea came to be for you?
Yeah. So basically I've been I slowly incorporated backpacking into my life in my early 20s. And then part of the reason that happened is because we went to Yosemite. I learned about the John Muir Trail while we were hiking Half Dome, and that sparked the idea to do a long trail. And then I researched the John Muir Trail and I learned about the PCT. And then 4 years later, after dreaming and daydreaming, and finally, you know, not really, it wasn't really motivation. It was just more of like this idea that I couldn't get out of my mind. Like I had to do the PCT. And so it was just 4 years of knowing about the PCT turned into me doing it finally. And that's a very brief synopsis, but I think that suffices.
And,
Yeah.
you took and you shared amazing pictures and videos throughout all your experiences. But one that I really enjoyed was you took a picture a few years ago here in Washington State at a PCT trailhead. And you took another picture at that same trailhead while you were finishing up the PCT in Washington, which was just awesome to see that, journey from when you took that picture to actually being on the PCT and taking it again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That would have been what 2020 or 2021 when I went to Washington to visit and we went over Snoqualmie Pass on the interstate and that was right in the heart of like I was dreaming about the PCT but I wasn't in a place in life that I could actually do it yet and so I was
Mhm.
working towards that goal. But when we crossed Snoqualmie Pass on the interstate, we stopped and I found that sign and I took a picture and I told myself that the next time I come here, I'm going to walk here. And I honestly didn't think I would make it in like 2 years from that point. I thought it would
Mhm.
take me longer, but I made it happen and I walked there. I did it and it was
Yeah.
really cool. It was actually a really cool moment looking back on that, just that little moment in time. It actually, I mean, I haven't really thought about it a lot since I finished the PCT. I thought about it like the day after I took the picture while I was hiking, but now that I think about it now, I'm like, man, Like that's cool. I'm proud of myself
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, you did it, man. One thing, Riley, that we kind of finished talking about, towards the end of your first episode was you pretty much had your pack list dialed in. And I think you said maybe there was a few items that you're going to play it by ear or you were on the fence about. Can
Mhm.
you share a little bit about your starting pack list and maybe your starting weight?
Yep. So in the first episode that you recorded with me, I told you my gear philosophy, which is to balance comfort, portability, and protection. And that remains a staple. And I still, after I lived outside for 6 straight months, and I absolutely still agree with my philosophy pre-trail. Not a lot changed as far as what my gear list was when I started. Like I sent home some things, but 90% of my gear I used the entire trail and it lasted and it didn't break and some things did, but like it was very minor. Like so my gear list definitely was dialed in and it worked for me perfectly. As far as so like I mean I used a ULA circuit backpack which was
Mhm.
outstanding and that backpack has another long trail of life on it easily. I can probably hike
Nice.
another trail with it for sure. I love that backpack. I used the Catabatic Flex 15 on the entire trail, and I've had that backpack for 2 years prior to the PCT, and probably at least 100 nights in it prior to the PCT, and then I slept in it for 160 nights minus the town stays, so probably 140 nights. And then I
Wow.
washed it, and it's like good as new now. So as far as I can tell, that thing will last me a long time. And then I used a Neo Air X Lite blow up pad that I had had for 3 or 4 years prior to the PCT, and it lasted for approximately 1,700 miles before it popped. And so
Wow.
actually, and I was kind of sad. I named him Old Yellow because it was, old and yellow was the first version of the Thermarest X-Lite, and I actually was kind of sad when it popped because I put duct tape on it. The entire state of Oregon I just slept on it and it would deflate twice at night and I'd just keep blowing it up and I kept putting duct tape and tenacious tape and super glue and I gave up and I replaced it with another one. But I had all my trail family sign it before because I wanted to keep it. It was like sentimental to me because I'd slept on that thing for a couple hundred nights at least, maybe more.
Yeah.
And so I had all of my trail family signed it and I sent it home and now I have it up on the wall. I cut it in half below where everybody signed it, and it's
Yeah.
just up on my wall, and it's a good memory. So, but I got another one. I actually got a woman's length X Lite that's 8 inches shorter than the normal one, and it just saves weight. And it's not like I'm that big of a weight weenie, but
Hmm.
a trail angel gave it to me for free, so I was like, sure. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I hiked the entire state of Washington and a little bit in California with that shorter pad, and I liked it. I didn't have an issue with it being shorter. So what
Um,
else? What else should I tell you about gear? So I used a Outdoor Vitals 40th trekking pole tent,
mhm.
and I didn't really use it a ton because I ended up cowboy camping a lot, and but the tent was great. I would recommend that tent. It held up well, and it's simple to use, easy to set up. I used a bivy sack as well as that tent because my philosophy was like I hate bugs and I don't
Mhm.
sleep well if I'm cowboy camping because for some reason I have this subconscious paranoia about something crawling on me because of past experiences where things have crawled on me at night. And so I have this little bivy sack that's made by Bora Gear, Borah,
Mhm.
and it's made out of sil nylon and mesh. It weighs 5 or 6 ounces, and it basically I just call it a bug sack. So I took that, and whenever I cowboy camped, I just slept in that thing, and that thing turned out to be really key. I really enjoyed using that, and I would just put my pad, I'd put my sleeping quilt in there, and just keep it all together in one thing. And so when I woke up in the morning, deflate the pad, roll it all up in one thing, just shove it in the backpack, I could have my camp cleaned up in 5 minutes or less.
Oh,
And
wow.
I used that the entire desert, and then I ended up sending it home when I got to the Sierra because I never was going to use it again. But for the desert section, I would recommend using one of those lightweight bivvies to cowboy camp if you don't like
Mhm.
bugs. mean, most people just cowboy camped and didn't care about anything crawling on them, but I just have this subconscious paranoia that I don't like. So that solved that problem. But I sent that home after I had determined I didn't really need it because I wanted to use my tent in Oregon and Washington when there was actually mosquitoes and stuff. But in the desert, there wasn't any mosquitoes. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
But yeah, it
And
was, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if there's any other gear specific questions that I went over before I started. And I used the umbrella for the desert and I put that in a hiker box in Bishop, California because I didn't need it anymore.
okay.
And like I used the foam pad, one of those Z lights.
Hmm.
Actually, I used like the Nemo brand one. I bought one of those in Kennedy Meadows South, and I used that from Kennedy Meadows South all the way to the border of Canada, and I really, really enjoyed having that in addition to a blow up pad. I think me, like I can't sleep on one. I tried a couple nights to just sleep on the foam. I can't do it. So having that for breaks, as a fly swatter, and shade, etc. You can use it for so many different uses. I really enjoyed having the foam pad, and then I just had the blow up pad for sleeping, and I didn't feel like it made my pack too heavy. So, and
Okay.
yeah, I don't even know what my
And Riley, do you remember? Oh, go ahead.
as far as like my pack weight, I don't even know what it weighed. I don't really care. It was light enough to hike the PCT, and I had a lot of fun carrying it around, so it must have been light enough.
I like that philosophy too.
Yeah.
Now, Riley, can you kind of walk us through the days leading up to making it out to the Southern Terminus? Because, like you said, this had been something that you've been dreaming about for years. What was the experience like, flying out to California, hiking out to the Southern Terminus, and doing your starting photo there on top of it?
Yeah. So I started on the 6th of April, which is a Thursday. And on the previous Saturday was my last day of work. And that was kind of a surreal moment because I didn't really know if I was coming back, but I had worked there for 8 years and I had some really good friends at work. So I had to, like, when I quit, I was really, really excited to quit, but it was really profound feeling to quit a job after 8 years where I did enjoy working there and I enjoyed the people, but I needed to do this thing for myself. And so that was kind of an interesting and powerful experience to just realize that like I actually was thankful for that job. And so then I spent Sunday, Monday, Tuesday preparing and just going over things and being excited and getting all of my at home things taken care of so I wouldn't have to worry about them and tidying up my house and etc. But and then I flew to San Diego on Wednesday, and that was and my mom and dad and sister dropped me off at the airport in Salt Lake City and said our goodbyes, and the adventure was started, and I was just giddy with excitement, and it was cool flying into San Diego. Like it was just whatever. It was a flight, whatever, and then when I got to the airport, I used the Southern Terminus shuttle to get to Campo from the airport, and they just take you. They're previous PCT hikers, really friendly to the hiking community, and I ended up meeting, I think, four people, maybe five people on that same bus that I hiked most of the trail with. Gravedigger, No
Oh,
Cape, Old
wow.
Faithful, Hair Tie was on there, Thrift. There was a few others that I hiked on and off with too, but yeah, it was cool to get like I already was thrust into the PCT community before I even got to the PCT, and then pulling into Campo, it was like it seriously felt like I was at summer camp, like a little kid again. It had just that excitement level. Like when you're a kid, for some reason, you just get this really profound, excited feeling a lot of times in your life because a lot of things in life are new to you when you're a kid. And then when you become an adult, it seems to me like that goes away a lot of times. And
Mm.
I've relived a lot of those same emotions that I had had as a kid when I was, going to the Southern Terminus. And then it really was cool to feel like a little kid again almost. And so then, Campo was cool. It had a good vibe. There was a lot of hikers there, probably 30 of them camped out at Camp Lockett. And then the next day, I had already made friends that night with a few people. And so we all walked up to the terminus. And I mean, we all kind of walked up kind of by ourselves, but we all met at the terminus. And then the PCTA was there handing out stickers and checking your permit. And if you had a permit, they would give you that plastic hang tag that you can put on your backpack. And Then we took our pictures. It was cool to like I took pictures of people who I finished the trail with. So I took Northern Terminus
Nice.
pictures and Southern Terminus pictures and vice versa. Like the person who took both of my Terminus pictures, I hiked most of the trail with, and that was really cool too. And at the time at the Southern Terminus, you don't know if that's going to happen. But
Yeah.
looking back now, it was really cool to be with those people and share that experience as well as the finishing experience with them. And yeah, just felt like a kid again.
Oh.
And off we were, and I mean, nobody really knew what they were doing. I had a pretty good idea, and so same with everybody else, but you just learn as you go, and it was beautiful.
Now, like as a kid, when you're excited about an experience, it's hard to sleep the day before, the night prior.
Yep.
Did you get that same sense of like getting up early just because you couldn't really continue sleeping to just hit the trail?
Oh yeah, I didn't sleep much that first night at all, and I don't think many other people did. But yeah, I woke up before it was light, and because my goal was to be at the terminal while the sunrise is happening, and same with a lot of other people. So yeah, I was ready to go. I just wanted to get on. That's what when we were like hanging out at Camp Lockett the night before, all of us were just like, yeah, I can't wait till morning. I just want to start hiking. So yeah.
And Riley, can you take us through those first couple days of that stretch between the Southern Terminus and I feel like Idlewild is one of the first like checkpoint mountain
Oh
towns
yeah.
for a lot of PCT. How were those few days on the trail between the Southern Terminus and Idlewild?
Yeah, I think the first 4 days from Campo to Mount Laguna, that was you're just getting a feel for everything. And I mean, my excitement remained throughout the entire trail for the most part, but like you were really, really like excited about things and taking pictures of everything, trying to savor every moment, remember everything. And I mean, those things remained the entire trail, but it was like exponentially more the first 4 or 5 days. And then, you're developing relationships with other hikers, trying to get a feel for who you want to hike with and if you want to hike with anybody or by yourself. And you're just, I did my first resupply at Mount Laguna, which was an experience. And then, it's just like you're just easing into the trail, at least as far as we did. We did about 10 to 12 miles a day for the first week or so, just to let our bodies get used to the grind of constant hiking. But it was cool to
Mhm.
finally be out there here. All the dreaming that I had done for years, it wasn't a dream anymore. It was reality. And just it was cool. It was so cool to be there. And this year it was really wet in the desert, and so there was water everywhere. We didn't have I mean
Oh,
we had like
interesting.
we had like a I mean I carried 1 liter out of Campo, and I had 3 or 4 water sources that first day, and I did 11 miles the first day. So there was 3 or 4 water sources in the first 11 miles, which, as far as I've researched, that's very, very abnormal. And it was like there was water throughout the entire desert for the most part. The longest water carry I had in the desert was 15 miles, and that was once.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it was a good year to through hike the PCT in the desert, absolutely. But no, getting up to like, and it was really cool because I look back now and I see how my friendships were built with everybody that first week, especially from Campo to Julian. Julian's mile 77. And by the time we got to Julian, I'd have to like go through the exact people, but there was a handful of people who I was very good friends with by that point. And so we were basically like, oh, we're a trail family already within a week or even less. And a lot of people had trail names by then. I hadn't had a trail name yet, but like I had given Old Faithful his trail name and Gravedigger and a few other people and it was great. And then leaving Julian is when Note got her trail name because of a allergic reaction on her heel where she put leukotape on her heel because of blisters, and then she had allergic reaction to the tape. So
Oh,
then we did an
no.
allergy test with all the different types of tape we had on her arms to see what tape would work, and then she had an allergic reaction to all of the tape. So her trail name's No Tape.
Oh, no.
And at mile 100, which is like Montezuma Market, I think, It's hard to keep track of the exact mileages that far south, but she ended up taking a couple days off and got behind us. And she was, I mean, she tells me now that she was pretty sad about that, but and she was worried she was going to have to get off the trail because the blisters were really, really bad. But she was able to get back on the trail,
Mm.
and we got a few days ahead of her, so we didn't run into her again until later on in the desert. But then getting to like the first major challenge of the PCT is, other than just starting and getting used to it, is San Jacinto. And especially this year where there
Hmm.
was unprecedented amounts of snow. And so we really kind of took our time because it was hot and snow was melting. And so if we took longer, more snow would melt, right? And so we kind of
Yeah.
took our time and we developed a game plan as we were hiking. And then when we got to Idlewild, we rented out an Airbnb and there was, I don't know, 10 or 11 people there. And we kind of developed a game plan how to tackle the San Jacinto. And I had by far the most experience on snow. And Gravedigger had a fair amount of experience on snow, and other people did. But for the most part, the group was pretty inexperienced as far as like steep, snowy slopes. And so I liked all these people. I was good friends with them. Didn't really know at the time if I would hike with them the entire trail, but like the camaraderie was really starting to build. We were becoming really, really good friends. We were a really good team. So we decided to tackle San Jacinto together. And we, you know, I went in front and Gravedigger was in the back, and we had an order, and everybody stayed in the same order. And your responsibility was obviously for yourself, but you were supposed to keep track of who was in front of you and behind you. And if anybody needed help, we would relay information amongst each other so that we were all safe. And I mean, that was looking back after having hiked basically, well, most of the PCT I didn't, there was a small section I didn't do, but looking back now, like literally the most dangerous part of the PCT was from Apache Peak to Red Tawhit's Peak or whatever it's called. It's a 6 mile section from
Hmm.
mile 169 to 175. It was the most dangerous part of the whole trail because of the immediate fall risk and exposure and the snow coupled with that. And so we made it through that
Yeah.
with no incident that were alarming, nothing that raised your heart or anything, and we all made it through with ice axes and spikes, and that was very cool to it was just it was an epic day. I was exhausted after that. And but we made it through, and after that we really were a team. We were a trail family, we were a team. We I mean, I genuinely loved everybody in the group. Like I was feeling like this brotherly and camaraderie love that I had never felt before with people who were basically strangers not even 2 weeks ago. And it was awesome. So after San Jacinto, we get down to, I mean, that was an exhilarating experience. And then we took a day off in Cabazon. And then once we started to head north towards Big Bear, that's kind of when everybody and myself too was really getting into this groove. We had hiked over 200 miles by then, and it just became second nature almost to just be a through hiker. And we had figured out how to resupply decently. Our bodies were really adjusting quickly, if not already adjusted. The injuries, like I started off with having Morton's neuroma in my foot from training, which is like an inflamed nerve in my
Oh
foot.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, and so that was bothering me. But after San Jacinto, it slowly just went away because of the physical. I used Blaze Physio. She's a physical therapist who has that red van, and she was on the PCT
Hmm.
helping hikers, but she also had it online. You could talk to her FaceTime, and so I did that prior to the PCT. And she told me the best way to heal a ligament injury or an inflamed nerve or whatever I was having is to load it. You literally have to just use it. So that's why I hiked a pretty easy pace, low miles the first couple weeks, is because I was trying to get my foot to react to the hiking. And it after 200 miles, it stopped hurting. Like it would hurt every day leading up to that, but I was doing lower
Yeah.
miles. And after San Jacinto, I had hardly any issues with my foot the entire trail after that. And so it really
Ah.
became second nature during that section from what was it called? San Gorgino Pass all the way up to Big Bear. That's when I went through this phase of this isn't a like a vacation anymore. This is life. It became second nature.
Yeah.
And it happened to me pretty early. I don't know if it happened to everybody else at that time, but at least as far as my experience goes, that's when I really was dialed into this lifestyle that I was in now.
And Riley, when you first came on the podcast, you shared about your hiking experiences and backpacking experiences in the Utah winters. Having those experiences under your belt, did it help navigate all the snow that you were encountering in and around San Jacinto? And
The thing that helped me most with the snow was actually my hunting background and my ability to read a topography map and navigate that
Mhm.
way. Yeah, the snow experience in Utah helped for sure because I was confident in snow. I knew how to create traction. I knew how the snow would react under my feet. And the snow conditions were familiar to me. So yeah, I had confidence that way as far as snow, but what helped me with the navigation and helped me with leading the group that I was with through San Jacinto was just it was almost second nature to me to know how to read the topography, whether that's in person or on a map, and say, we need to go this way. I know the trail's right here, but because of it's really steep there, or because of these trees, or because of XYZ, we need to go this way. And when the snow is covering the trail, you're not on the trail anyways. Like you're really just trying to get through the area as efficiently as possible. And that doesn't always mean following the red line. Oftentimes that means not following the red line. And so there was a lot
Mm.
of times, especially in the Sierra and especially in Oregon, actually, when we we were in Oregon earlier than most hikers because we flip-flopped. Like that hunting background and the map reading skills that I had really, really, really helped me and really helped the group.
And, you know, I'm fascinated with the trail family and the building, the camaraderie that comes through it. Riley, kind of looking back at all your experiences that you shared with your trail family, do you feel like having those type of, I guess you could almost call it like team bonding experiences, like navigating a treacherous pass, kind of helped solidify the family vibe that you guys created ultimately on the trail?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the thing that early on in the trail, the thing that solidified our trust in each other, I guess the most was really San Jacinto. And that's where, I mean, we proved ourselves that day. Like I remember telling the group after we had finished that section, I said, guys, you guys made it through this. You can finish this trail. That was tough. That was hard. It was mentally and physically exhausting. And we only did 9 miles that day, but it took us literally the entire day to do 9 miles. Because one, it was a big group and we were slower than we could have been if we were a smaller group, but it was like we're trying to get through this safely without any incidents, and a big group's just going to be slower. But everybody was okay with it. We weren't trying to push
Yeah.
and get miles in. We realized that this is a section where getting miles in isn't really in the realm of possibilities. We just need to get through this section because once we get lower elevation, then we can make miles. And everybody was on the same page as far as I know. And we made it through. And that, I mean, you find out what you're made of when you go through things like that. And when I went through that with my trail family, I realized that we were made a lot of tough stuff and we could do anything we wanted. And it proved to be true because there was more snow yet to come in the San Gorgino and the Bernardino Mountains and the Sierra, especially, and in Oregon. And I mean, there was every single section this year we encountered snow. Even in Washington, there was a little bit, nothing major. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely what built us is going through those early experiences in the desert with snow.
And with a trail family, Riley, how is there some logistical planning on not necessarily hiking together? Because I know, some people hike at different speeds, but is there some logistical planning like, hey, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to be camping, like, come find me when you make it here, or I'll be waiting for you. Is there some logistical planning, or do you leave it a little bit to like on the trail magic to find one another at the end of the day?
Yeah, we would loosely plan our days. And I mean, I liked camping with them. It was really fun. And so we did make it a point to like camp with each other and take lunches with each other. But when you're all on the same trail, heading the same direction with the same mileage goals in mind, I mean, you naturally just run into each other throughout the day. And I mean, we hiked together quite a bit and talked and hung out, but then there would be periods of time where everybody would want to hike by themselves, but really we didn't really get very far apart from each other. I mean, usually it'd be within in a desert when you can see a long ways and the trail switchbacks on itself all the time. I mean, you can look and see
Yeah.
somebody in front of you or behind you, and then if you stop for 5 minutes, people would catch up to you and your family, and so you could keep track of each other that way. And most of us had Garmin InReach as well. And so we were able
Oh, okay.
you can hook those up to where you can text InReach to InReach. And so we kept
Hmm.
track of each other that way, as well as in Southern California, you have phone service fairly frequently. So we kept tabs on each other multiple different ways. But as far as like camping together, and I mean, it was kind of, you can't really make plans. I mean, you can say, oh, I'd like to
Mm.
do 10 to 15 or whatever, 14 to 15, 16, 17, 18 miles a day, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be until we get a few miles from, well, maybe a midday, maybe we'd say, oh, we should camp at this mileage marker. Usually it was
Yeah.
play it by ear, figure it out. And that was like that. I mean, it was almost impossible to plan multiple days ahead. And that's one thing that really, the PCT taught me, that being flexible in your planning is like being able to do that and still remain happy and motivated even when your plans don't go as you think. Like that's a very valuable skill and trait to have, because on the PCT or any through hike, I imagine, like your plans are gonna change 3 or 4 times a day. That's just the nature of a through hike. And that's just what we grew to expect over time. And then when things went array, and I mean, oftentimes the problems you had were very minor. It was like, oh, we can't camp here because somebody else is there and we have to go further, or this water source was not as good as the last one, or we should have got water there because this water source was dry, like things like that. It's like you just learn that's just part of life. And the biggest
Mm.
logistical thing as far as like the trail family was just in towns. Like we wanted to stay together, so we'd have to rent out an Airbnb, which was a little more effort than getting a hotel, but sometimes it would save us money if we had 10 people in an Airbnb instead of 2 or 3 or 4 people in a hotel. And and we definitely took our time in the desert because of the snow in the Sierra. So we stayed in most towns and took 0 days, and it was really, really fun. We had a lot of fun together in the desert, just easing into the through hike, having fun, realizing that we weren't in any hurry, because as soon as we got to Kennedy Meadows South, the trail would change. And so we were not really in a hurry to get there, because we were like, well,
Mhm.
even if we get there and skip the Sierra, there's still snow in Northern California at this time. And because this was in May when we were having these
Yeah.
discussions with each other. And so we just eased into it and we slowly meandered our way north. And we did some bigger mile days, but I did one day that was over 26 miles in the desert. And
Oh, wow.
most of the time we were doing less than 20 miles a day, because we had no reason to, we didn't, I mean, we wanted to be together and we wanted to make a smart and wise decision when we got to the Sierra. And frankly, we didn't really know if we were gonna go into the Sierra in the desert. We didn't make that call until we basically got there. And so,
Yeah.
like, it was, yeah, I mean, you just have to, like, it's logistical planning. It's hard to logistically plan a through hike. And you just have to be okay with change. You have to be flexible, and you have to remain positive when your plans don't go as smoothly as you think they will. So,
Yeah. And, one thing I did want to ask you about, Riley, because it came up on your guys' post a lot, but how did the game of cribbage come to be within your trail family? Because that was definitely something that you guys recently did together.
oh yeah. So cribbage. So I have to give credit to Sasquatch and Bob, because Sasquatch and Bob taught me how to play cribbage in, I believe it was Green Valley, which is, it's in the desert, and I can't remember exactly where it is. That part of the trail is kind of a blur. It was like this little gas station about a mile off the trail, and it was like during that time, it was before Tehachapi, I believe, and it might have even been before Cajon Pass, or maybe it was after Cajon Pass. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it was like 300 to 400 miles into the desert, and there was two groups. that so I was in a group that we kind of called ourselves WWTH. It was called World War Through Hike. And that was like what we called our group because of on day 2, actually, Gravedigger was cleaning his cook pot with dirt. And he was like, I was like, and it was me, Gravedigger, Hair Tie, and Old Faithful camping together. And we're eating dinner, and that was on day 2. We were under the bridge right after Lake Marina and camping out, and he's over there he throws a bunch of sand in his pot and just starts scrubbing it. And I'm like, and I had a cold for some reason the first couple days, and so I was really nasally, and I said, that looks like some through hiker stuff. And he thought I said, that looks like some World War through hiker stuff, because I had like this nasally voice because I had a cold. And so then like World War through hike just became this thing. And so then everybody who we had kind of like recruited into our trail family after that, it was like WWTH. Like we were hashtagging our Instagram posts. We were writing WWTH in the snow and in the sand on the trail. Like it was just this fun thing we did. And so then we were the World War through hikers. And then there was this other group of hikers called the Fellowship, and it was Sasquatch, Bob, Impala, Ravioli, Boomerang, and a few other people. And we kind of met up and became friends. Like our group was friends with their group, and we were kind of flip-flopping each other throughout the desert. And then in Green Valley, we were all together. And then Sasquatch and Bob were playing cribbage. I had heard of cribbage, and I never played it before, but I love card games. And so I was like, man, this looks fun. So they taught me in Old Faithful how to play. And I really enjoyed it, but it was hard to learn because there's a little bit of math, a little bit of adding, and, it's a new card game. So we played it once in Green Valley. And then when we got to Weeville Market, which is right by Hikertown, we stayed there for a day and a half because we needed a 0 day. And then we were waiting until nightfall to night hike the aqueduct. And so we just played card games all day at the Weeville Market and ate food and hung out, and there was a whole bunch of hikers there. And so we played lots of games of cribbage, and I said, this is a good game. And so it just became part of what we did. And then we got to the Sierra, played some cribbage in Kennedy Meadows South, played cribbage in Lone Pine and Bishop. And then when we flip-flopped to Cascade Lock, started hiking southbound, and we were stuck in a snowstorm at Timberline Lodge, and then at that point, Bob and Sasquatch and the Fellowship were like a day behind us because we had to rent a car, and it was like logistically challenging and all that. So they were a day behind us, so I wasn't with them. So me and Old Faithful and No Tape, we didn't have a cribbage board, but we wanted to play a game, but we were stuck in a snowstorm at Timberline Lodge. So I go down, and in Timberline Lodge is like this ski resort type thing, and they had a gift shop, and there was a cribbage board for sale in the gift shop. So, and it was like one of those little foldable ones, little portable ones. So I bought it. It was $10, and it had a deck of cards with it too. So then we just started playing cribbage, and I just fell in love with the game. Same with Ulf, same with No Tape. And then eventually we met back up with Sasquatch and Bob and Ravioli and Impala, and it just became like what we did. We hiked, we played cribbage, and we ate and we slept. And I played a lot of games of cribbage, especially with me and No Tape. We played tons of cribbage. It was good to keep the mind active because when you're through hiking, you just walk, and it's easy to just, it could be easy, I think, to just kind of zone out every day and not have anything else going on other than walking and like trail logistics. So it was good to be able to have that game to like keep your mind active in a different way. I love cribbage.
Right on, man.
I still play it. I came home, I bought like a big 4-track cribbage board, and I play it with my dad and my brother and my sister now. We actually invented different reiterations of cribbage while we were on the trail, me and Sasquatch and Bob and No Tape. We invented super crib and we invented battle crib, which basically means you can take points away from each other. Like it turned into this whole thing. So
you might have to do a step-by-step guide for the class of 2024,
right? Oh, everybody. And there was other hikers. Like I would randomly teach hikers how to play cribbage. And there was this girl, her name was Red Velvet, and in Syed Valley, I think, or maybe it was at Crater Lake. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I taught her how to play cribbage. And then I saw her at Trail Days, which was like a month later, or maybe a couple weeks later. I don't know exactly. It was later. And she said, Fry Pocket, I bought a cribbage board and I have one. I play cribbage too. I was like, yes, like we're spreading the cribbage religion to the thru hikers, and it was really cool. So
Oh, that's awesome, man. Now, Riley, we've been talking about it, I think not just through hikers, but everyone in and around the Sierra Nevadas were talking about the snow and the historic snow that they received. And you actually made it quite a bit into the Sierras before you decide to flip flop to Cascade Locks and go south from Oregon. Like, did I imagine you were getting information from, the PCT community and other hikers of the snow levels that you were expecting to encounter in the Sierras? Like, once you reached those snowfields, how was it navigating and kind of, can you walk us through the process of deciding like, okay, we made it as far as we could. Let's flip flop and go to the Pacific Northwest and go southbound.
yeah, and I mean, information's pretty easy to find in the PCT community as far as like far out and Facebook groups and word of mouth. There was a lot of fear mongering, I thought. It wasn't as bad as looking back, the fear mongering wasn't as bad as like I felt like it was at the
Mm-hmm.
time. But I just, and honestly, it wasn't even until like after, it was after Tehachapi, almost the Ridgecrest. I guess it was like Ridgecrest area. So what is that? Can't remember what that pass is called. I'm so bad at remembering names of places. I went to so many places, but that's when I really decided to go into the Sierra because I was still on the fence myself. I thought, I mean, we got word that there was a bridge that got washed out, so it was basically
Mm-hmm.
impassable. And there was people going into the Sierra, and they were making it, or people didn't hear from him, or they were turning around. So there was a lot of like conflicting information. And I finally came to the realization, and it took seeing the Sierra to make the decision to go into the Sierra because, like, really, it was just a weird headspace to be in because I realized, okay, well, we've hiked very straightforward for the most part for around 650 miles, and we're getting close to Kennedy Meadows South, and we're together as a trail family. Unfortunately, Heritai and Thrift decided to go home at Ridgecrest because I don't know exactly why, but I kind of suspect it was just a lot of anxiety with the snow and things and other things, personal things that aren't my business. But it was kind of I was down in the dumps because like they were my friends. They went home and they did not want to go into the Sierra, and so that was affecting my decision because like I realized like I just wanted to hike with them. I wanted to go to the Sierra, but I wanted to hike with them more. But then when they went home, I realized, well, I can't make decisions based on somebody else. If I want to go through the Sierra, I should do it because this is my hike too. It's
Yeah.
not, but it was like a balance between my desire to be with my trail family and do what I wanted to do. And like I was really having a conflicted time because I didn't know what to do. And I knew the Sierra was very daunting this year. And so on that section between Ridgecrest and Kennedy Meadows, you climb up this climb, and it's the first time you can see the actual Sierra Nevada range north of you. And I was with
Mm-hmm.
Daniela, no tape, during that little section there. And I climbed up, and as soon as I saw the Sierra, I just sat there and looked at them. And they were, 30, 40 miles off in the distance, but I could see the white mountains and just going on forever. And I got my Peak Finder app out and identified Mount Whitney and a few other mountains. And I just had this feeling like, and this longing like, you got to go at least try. You don't have to go through the whole Sierra, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
try because if you don't try, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Because when else is the Sierra going to be highest snow year recorded in recent history, right? This is that year.
Oh.
And you're hiking the PCT in 2023, and you have to at least try. At least that was my feeling. Now, I don't think that applies to every hiker, but for me,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was feeling. And Daniela was right behind me. No Tape was right behind me. And I turned around and she's like, "You have a look on your face, like you got to go." I'm like, "Yeah, like I have to give it a noble effort. I don't feel like I have to do the entire Sierra, but I feel like I will not, like I won't be okay with not trying." And so that was when I decided I'm going, and everybody in our trail family decided to at least try it as well. And so we all hiked into Kennedy Meadows South together with really good vibes. It was so special to finish the desert section, continuous footpath from Campo all the way to Kennedy Meadows South. and we prepared for a few days to go into the Sierra. We didn't let the fear mongering get to us. We were confident because we'd been through snow in San Jacinto, we'd been through snow in the San Gabriels. We had hiked together the whole trail. We'd planned logistics together, et cetera, and so forth. And so, but one thing that I learned personally is I did not want to be in a huge group in the snow again. I I was okay with that for the mountain ranges that we did it in previously, but for the Sierra, I said, you know what? Like, I think that we should split off into maybe three different groups. We should remain in contact with each other, but the three different groups should be independent of each other. And so that's what we did. And that was mainly like, it was just better for everybody, I think, because we were all faster that way. And it wasn't as mentally exhausting because like I felt personally responsible for the safety of everybody in my family while I was leading the group in San Jacinto. And I was okay with that, but for 2 or 3 days was fine. But for a week or more, I knew I probably couldn't handle that mental load on top of the already hard physical load. So we split up. We met back up after and we resumed our trail family as normal. But during the Sierra section, I went through from Canyon Meadow South to Lone Pine, 40-ish, 50-ish miles. I went with Gravedigger, Old Faithful, Goldie, and No Tape. And the first 20 miles of that was snow free, but then we hit snow, got up to Mulkey Pass, dropped down to Horseshoe Meadows, and then we had the road walk down to Lone Pine. And that was a warm up really for the Sierra because you got up to about 10,000, a little over 10,000 feet one time for a little, not very long, but for a few miles. And then you were constantly in snow for about 20, I don't know exactly how many miles, but it was around 20 to 25 miles. We had a storm roll in, very minor storm, but it just was enough of a storm to like keep you on your toes. So it was a really good warm up. And then what we decided is like, because some people were deciding, oh, we're going to hike all the way from Kennedy Meadows South all the way to Kearsarge Pass in one push and do Whitney. And I was like, yeah, let's just go to Lone Pine because Lone Pine's like, let's just do one chunk at a time. So we did that, and I'm glad I did that instead of trying to do one big push with all the snow and the extra weight of food and the bear can and everything. So we got out to Lone Pine. Daniela or No Tape, she decided to not continue further, and that was when Gravedigger decided he was going to go home for about a month to let snow melt and continue. So we had to say goodbyes temporarily to No Tape and maybe permanently for Gravedigger. So that was kind of different vibe there. It was fun, but it was like, oh man, like I had to say goodbye to Gravedigger, who's one of my best friends, and Daniela. I call her Daniela because I have maintained a relationship with her off trail, so that's her real name. So No Tape. I'm trying to quit calling her No Tape and call her by her real name, so it's like hard for me to. But No Tape, she decided just to road walk backcountry roads from Lone Pine to Bishop while we were hiking through the Sierra. So she ended up doing like 45 or so miles. Maybe it was 60 miles even. I can't remember. I didn't hike it, but she hiked from the city of Lone Pine to the city of Bishop while we were in the Sierra from Mulkey Pass to Kearsarge Pass. And so anyways, so then it was just me, Goldie, which is a girl I met who's from New Hampshire. Really cool. I really like her. And Ulf, he's one of my best friends. I hiked basically the whole trail with him. Old Faithful Ulf. He's from Wisconsin. Anyhow, it was just us three. And that was a really intense section. Lots of snow, constant snow, basically. We had to cross a few river crossings that were cold and nothing crazy scary, but they were gnarly enough to make it feel intense. And then we staged at Crabtree Meadows to hike Mount Whitney. And then we got word that some of our other friends who were a couple days ahead of us actually had to hit their SOS button on the inReach because they got stuck in a blizzard next to Forester Pass and then they ran out of food because of that. And I don't know exactly the whole story, but it was a whole mess and they were fine. They got out of there fine. They had to go backwards to a ranger station and get food that the rangers had there. But they didn't ever, I don't even went over Forester Pass. I'm pretty sure they made it to the base of Forester Pass and then went back to Lone Pine. And we were in there at the same time, but we didn't see him because we were at Crabtree Meadows, which is like an offshoot of the PCT. blue blaze essentially. So they must have went around us somehow. We never saw them, but we got word that they hit SOS while we were at Crabtree Meadows because of the blizzards. There were storms coming in every single afternoon. So we were basically getting up in the morning early while the snow was hard, hiking in the snow until 10 to noon-ish, and the snow would get softer, and then we would just set up camp because then usually around, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a storm, and most of the storms were pretty minor for us, but they had potential to be major storms, and we didn't know what was coming. So it was a smart thing for us to get to camp earlier in the afternoon just in case the storm came in. So that's what we did. But then hearing that they hit SOS and had issues with blizzards, and we had brought one extra day of food to summit Mount Whitney and then come back and then continue the PCT. And then we also had another extra day of food in case there was storms. So essentially we had 2 extra days of food if we were only doing the red line. And so we decided to forego going to Mount Whitney and just continue, because if there was a storm, then we would have an additional extra day of food on top of the extra day we already had, just playing it safe. Turned out to be a good decision because the night before we were going to go do Whitney, it snowed 2 or 3 feet on Mount Whitney. And somebody who was at Crabtree Meadows attempted it and turned around anyways, couldn't make it. So turned out to be a good decision. Yeah, I was kind of heartbroken because I really wanted to climb Mount Whitney, but it was safer and a better choice not to. And so, but that was the most epic section of the trail. Like the whole trail in and of itself was epic. There was so many cool memories, but there was just something special about that section from Kearsarge Pass from Lone Pine to Kearsarge Pass, going over Forester Pass with just incredible amount of snow. It was intense. It was memorable. It was amazing. Being there with Old Faithful and Goldie was special. I'm glad I did that. Once we got over that down through Kings Canyon National Park and camped, and then the next day we went over Kearsarge, I just kind of was like, you know what? I feel good about this. Like I did enough in the Sierra to know that I can do it, but I don't need to continue on anymore, because after Kearsarge Pass is when a lot of those bigger river crossings are, when it's more dangerous. And I was okay. I came to terms with, like, you know what? Like if I flip-flop now, I'll be okay with it. But if I would have flip-flopped straight from Kennedy Meadows, I wouldn't have been. So I was thrilled that I had done that much in the Sierra. And then it was time to meet back up with our trail family and continue the adventure. So.
And Riley, how was it, going through that epic experience in the Sierra to then switching gears, traveling up to Cascade Locks, and then, here in the Pacific Northwest, we didn't get nearly the amount of snow that, SoCal and Utah and Colorado got, but you even encountered snow at Timberline Lodge, so it didn't escape you. It kept following you for a little bit. But how was it changing the landscape? Because especially the further south you go into Oregon, the more of a high desert it becomes. How was it kind of switching gears and just seeing that change in landscape?
Yeah, I think first of all, I got to explain why we decided to do that flip-flop, because most hikers that we were hearing from were, if they were flipping, they were flipping to either Old Station or Chester or basically southern Northern California. So like just past the Sierra into Northern California. And there was lots and lots of hikers doing that, which was a good idea. Frankly, it was a good idea to do that and just continue hiking north. Well, I did not, me and everybody else I was with, we were like, hey, look, we do not want to be in that big of a bubble, because that is a lot of people, and the infrastructure in Northern California is a lot smaller, a lot more spread out, a lot more delicate than it is in Southern California. And so we were like, that sounds like a nightmare to be in that big of a bubble. So why don't we just do something completely different than everybody else? And so we decided to rent a car we were in Bishop, California. We had to rent a car from Reno, and then we drove all the way to Cascade Locks, and with intentions to hike southbound through Oregon. And this was June. So I went over Forester Pass on June 9th, covered in snow, and then got to Bishop on June 10th, and then stayed a couple days in Bishop, game plan things. And then 2 of our group went up and got the car, came back to Bishop. We rented a minivan. And then we decided, well, if we're going to drive up there, I mean, we got time. we might as well go to Yosemite. So we took a side trip to Yosemite National Park. We were able to get cancellation permits for North Pines Campground. We hiked Yosemite Falls, Vernal Falls, had a great time. It was amazing to be there. The
Wow.
waterfalls, they were just enormous with all the snow. It was really cool. So, and really we wanted to have an experience on the PCT that was a little bit different than everybody else at that time. We didn't want to be in that giant bubble, and so we're like, well, if we go southbound, it'll be, it'll work out. So we drove up to Cascade Lock, dropped off the rental car at Portland Airport, and it was really interesting to change scenery. The trail felt different. It did have a lot different vibe because it was just us now, and nobody really was on the trail.
Mm.
We were the first ones on that section of trail for the most part. I mean, there was a few other people ahead of us and here and there, but like we were among the first through hikers in that area heading, and then we were heading south too. So that's just a different experience altogether. But no, it didn't solve our snow problems. It lessened them for sure, but there was still snow around Mount Hood. There was still snow around the Sisters and Mount Jefferson,
Mhm.
and it was really hard actually. And I almost got to the point where I regretted going to Oregon in June hiking south, but I never did. Especially looking back now, I don't regret it at all. But the hardest days of the whole trail were all in Oregon for me. Well, aside from some different reasons in Washington, but as far as like physical,
Mhm.
like exertion and mental fatigue because of blowdowns and snow and just like getting frustrated with the trail, that all happened in Oregon. And it was partly just because we were there too early. We were there before the snow was melted. We were there before the trail crews got there to cut all the and millions of down trees, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And so no, it definitely tested our mental fortitude in Oregon, Northern Oregon especially. It was really, really hard for everybody. It really was. But we made it through there. It was beautiful. I'm so glad I did that. And I mean, I have so many stories from Oregon. A lot of them, there's a lot of like they're good memories, but they're just very like the memory's good because it's in the past and I'm thankful for what I learned. But like during the time, it was just an absolute grind and it was super hard. And I'm thankful for that now. I met some amazing,
And
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I just gonna say that you also did another side quest to another national park there in Oregon, and you hit up Crater Lake, right?
Oh yeah, you have to go to Crater Lake. Like I don't even understand why the PCT does what it does in Crater Lake. You have to go hike that rim trail. You have to. Like
Yeah.
so yeah. No, we got to Crater Lake on the 4th of July and we took a 0 day there and it was great. It's a beautiful place. I love Crater Lake.
And then Riley, how far south did you end up making it? Because you ended up cruising through Oregon and then getting into Northern California, and I think Lake Tahoe, right?
Yeah, so going through Oregon, it was heading south. We were just with our trail family. Before I continue on, I have to mention a few important things about what was going on during that part of the trail. Is me and No Tape, we we were really, really good friends. We started on the same day. We hiked a lot together in the desert. She got injured, or I guess had her blisters and stuff on a mile 100, but then we met back up with her in Agua Dulce, and then from Agua Dulce on, she hiked with. But then we started to have some romantic feelings towards each other after the Sierra section, and we kind of pursued a relationship, sort of, and it kind of turned into an actual relationship by the time we got to Southern Oregon. And so, one of the most important things and the best things that ever happened to me in my whole life, let alone on the PCT, was meeting her. And so I can't even continue with the PCT story without mentioning her and thanking her for how wonderful she is. And so we are still in a relationship, trying to continue it on for the rest of our lives now. And so, anyways, I have to mention that. It's
Right
very
on.
important, very happy about that. And I love her. She's amazing. And she helped me and I helped her throughout the whole trail and we experienced something amazing together. So we really kind of became in a committed relationship right at Northern California and the Oregon border. And so we pretty much exclusively hiked just me and her one on one from Ashland all the way to Sonora Pass.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, Sasquatch was around and Bob was around here and there, but like really, we kind of got ahead of the other group, and we didn't really get ahead of the other group on purpose. It just kind of naturally happened for that section. But it was really good looking back to just hike with her, because me and her, we problem solved every single day. We were with each other going through the trail, the good and the bad times every single day. And we really, 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 really got to know each other like better than you could just living a normal life, dating and seeing each other after work and on the weekends. Like we lived together on the trail and went through all these hardships and good times and had a lot of fun and went through hiking in the heat together and planning and and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful time. And so I will cherish that section basically from Ashland to Sonora Pass. A lot of people, you call it NorCal blues, and I understand it. I totally get it. But for me, I didn't feel that because I was just in a different headspace than a lot of people are. Because we went south. I had the Oregon blues. I didn't have the NorCal blues, and Oregon was hard for me. And once I got through Oregon, I was so motivated because Northern California is so beautiful. Absolutely stunning terrain, especially Mount Shasta, Bernie Falls. Around Chester with all the burns, it's not as beautiful, but it has its own beauty in its own way. And it's just and that section right around Chester, sure, it's just a place you got to get through. But I met an amazing trail angel in Chester who lightened our mood, let us stay at his house for a couple of days. And I did a couple hiking challenges in Northern California because when we were in Oregon, you couldn't do a hiking challenge because it was snowy and so many blowdowns. And so we did all our fun hiking challenges in Northern California. It broke up the monotony. And so I love Northern California a lot more than I think a lot of hikers do, just because I approached it differently. And that's just entirely because of how I hiked it. Everybody's going to have a different experience. But no, we hiked south all the way to Sonora Pass. The reason I stopped at Sonora Pass is because there was still snow in the Sierra, and No Tape, she had a visa. She's from the Netherlands. And so she had a visa that was going to expire, and we did not want, she said, and me personally too, like at that point I'm with her. And for her, it was more important for her to get to the Northern Terminus and do Washington than it was to just go slog through the Sierra because it was still snowy, still dangerous river crossings. She's not that comfortable on snow herself. And so we decided we're going to go back to Washington. Well, just it worked out so perfectly. It was just a testament to, like, everything works out on the trail. The trail takes care of you. The people take care of you. Is we got 5 or 6 days ahead of all of my other trail family. We got 5 or 6 days ahead of Old Faithful, No Tape, or not No Tape, Pot Sticker, Skip, Forecast. I'm trying to remember everybody who was in that group. What happened is when they got to Tahoe, we were just finishing to Sonora Pass, and I had coordinated with my dad to drive out from Utah, and he wanted to come see me, and one of my friends from Utah wanted to hike a section with me too, and so my friend Brady drove out from Utah to South Lake Tahoe and hiked from South Lake Tahoe to Sonora Pass, which is 80 miles, about 80 miles. And then my dad picked us up at Sonora Pass and took us back to Lake Tahoe, which the rest of my trail family had just gotten there that day. And so we had this big family reunion at a trail angel's house that they were staying with. And we planned our flip back up to Washington together. And I hadn't seen them all in a month because it took about a month for us to hike from Ashland to Sonora Pass, and we were pushing big miles. And so and it was such a beautiful time. It was so fun to be back with the family and to have had that experience where me and No Tape were basically hiking together exclusively was very, very good for us and our relationship. But then it was also just so good to be back with the group. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
That's like a pretty brief synopsis of that section because it was a beautiful, beautiful time, scenic wise, and what was going on in my life on trail too. So
yeah, and one of the questions I wanted to ask, and you answered it, because here in Washington we had I guess not as intense wildfire season as previous years, and I did wonder because you kind of switched back up to Washington as our fire season was starting to kick into gear in the North Cascades. And I did wonder if that kind of played a role in trying to get to the Northern Terminus before the wildfire season really kind of took off?
Yeah, I mean, I played into it a little bit, but it wasn't my main motivation. The main reason I mean, we had a date. We wanted to get to the Northern Terminus that was really dependent on No Tape's visa expiration. So, but no, I mean, yeah, we knew it was a fairly mild fire season. We were able to get through Northern California before some of those fires happened. We were completely done with Oregon before the fires. The fires happened in Oregon actually while we were flipping up to Cascade Locks again, which was
Mm.
which was another thing that happened perfectly for us is we did not plan to go to Trail Days. It just so happened that when we flipped back to Cascade Locks was when Trail Days was going on. So we got to go to Trail Days. But it wasn't really a plan.
Right on.
I mean, honestly, me and No Tape couldn't have cared less if we went to Trail Days. We were there during Trail Days, so we went. So, but no, like we were not affected drastically by forest fires this year, thankfully. We did
Yeah.
have to do like the airplane and the Blue Lakes fire closure. They did affect us, but other than that, no, it was pretty straightforward through Washington, thankfully.
Right on. And I'm a little biased about your Washington experience because it's in my backyard, and you took some amazing pictures of what I consider personally an underrated gem, and that's the Goats Wilderness. And you got to see it, and much like a lot of things, things lined up where you ended up getting some really good weather in the Goat Rocks. And I also got to ask, like, how many pounds of huckleberry did you and No Tape go through just in that Washington section? Because you guys were coming across some of those fields.
I'll start off with the huckleberries first, but yeah, we took our time sometimes eating huckleberries, and I definitely had purple fingers, and my pants had purple on the front of them where I'd wipe it off on my pants, and so yeah, I really enjoyed the huckleberries. We found that if you put a bunch of them in a bag and squish them to make huckleberry juice, then you like put it in your water like it's a drink mix. It was pretty tasty because you can't just sit there and just
Oh, nice.
yeah, you can't just sit there and eat them all day because you got to make miles. But you get a whole
Yeah.
handful, and you can drink them. It was pretty good. I didn't do it all the time, but I did do that sometimes just for fun. But yeah,
I'm going to steal that hack,
do
Riley.
it. It was good. It really was. Anyways, but yeah, Washington. I love Washington. Goat Rock, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, I don't know if it's overrated because there was more people there than there was in the entire state of Washington, but when I compare it to the PCT, it's pretty remote. So I
Yeah.
get why there was people there, but no, we had a whole ridge basically to ourselves, just a bunch of smelly through hikers that had an overlook of Mount Rainier and Mount Adams at the same time, and it was really epic. But the coolest thing about the Goat Rocks is a unique thing happened is it was before you could see Mount Rainier, and we're hiking through the southern end of the wilderness, and we're just climbing, climbing, climbing. And um, on the PCT, I wore a camouflage sun hoodie, and the reason I wore that sun hoodie is or a camouflage sun hoodie is mainly well, one, I liked the shirt; it was a good, high quality shirt, and two, I wore camo because to kind of play or pay homage to the fact that the reason I'm out here, the root of it is because I'm a hunter, and that's what made me fall in love with the outdoors, and so I wore that camouflage partially for that reason, just because, like, yeah, I'm a hunter. Like I'm through hiking, but the reason I love this place is I hunt, and that's what taught me to love the mountains. And so, anyways, hiking along, and I look up, and there's a guy wearing the exact same camo as me off the trail. And I'm like, oh, that guy must be hunting because this was in August, which is hunting season in a lot of places. And I didn't know if what he was hunting. He had gotten something. He had some white game bags, which are bags that you put the meat in that keeps the meat clean and out of like the flies can't get to it and stuff. And so he had these game bags with meat just right off the trail. And I walked up to him like, you got something? And I could tell he could see my shirt, and so he knew like, oh, this guy's a hunter too. So I had a conversation
Yeah.
with him, and he had shot a black bear. It was black bear season in Washington, and he had harvested a black bear. And I've hunted black bears myself, and I've learned that black bear meat is actually very delicious. It's my favorite wild game meat. And so he had shot one, and I was talking to him like, hey, like everybody in my trail family, they've talked to me about hunting the whole trail, and I tell them why I love it, and I explain why it's valuable to me, why I think it's valuable to humanity, and I'm sure they're curious about meat. Like, I'd love to share some meat with them if you're willing to give me some. Like, I don't like to ask people for meat, but I thought in this case it was different. And he gave me about a pound of the backstrap, which is one of the better cuts of meat. And so I was able to share some black bear meat with my trail family. And I don't know if they appreciated that moment as much as me, but for me personally, to be able to share the fruits of a wild game harvest, like, that was valuable to me, because I think a lot of people misunderstand hunting, especially bear hunting, because I get it. Your bears are different than deer, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I do understand and sympathize towards the fact that you might be uncomfortable with that, but for a hunters, it's you hunt bears for a lot of different reasons, and they're delicious too. And so to share that with them, and I cooked it up in my cook pot with mayonnaise, and we were overlooking the Goat Rocks Wilderness. You could see Mount Rainier, and everybody tried it, and Skip and Pot Sticker really liked it. Old Faithful had a bite and said, "Oh, it's good, but I don't need any more." And No Tape had some, and I put the rest in my ramen bomb, and I was happy. And it was it was like the coolest trail magic, the most unexpected trail magic, like, that I had gotten on the trail. And looking back now, it's one of my fondest memories, just because I was able to share wild game that natural, and somebody worked really, really, really hard to ethically harvest that meat, and it was cool. So that's one of my memories of the Goat Rocks forever, is on top of it being one of the most beautiful places on the PCT, I had that extra meaningful experience. So
Wow. So such an incredible experience, Riley, to be able to not just share that, but to have, wearing the same shirt with a hunter who just by chance was able to harvest a bear and be able to share that with you and your trail families. Incredible. Now, Riley, we've kind of talked about the picture that you took at that trailhead in Snoqualmie Pass, and I feel like Snoqualmie Pass is like the halfway point for Washington when you're going north to south.
mhm.
How was that final stretch between Snoqualmie Pass and reaching the northern terminus and the North Cascade?
Honestly, it wasn't that great for me, because I hit a wall. I I started to get really fatigued and was losing weight, which I'm very skinny and don't have weight to lose anyways, so it got pretty bad. But and yeah, it was hard. It was probably one of the hardest times of my life, as far as like just mental grind and pushing my body beyond what I thought it was capable of. But it was a valuable time with my relationship with No Tape, because I mean, I wouldn't have finished without her. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We got to Stehekin, I would have gone home. I was so down mentally and physically that I was ready to be done. I thought at the time that if I went home, it would be better than if I continued, because I felt like I was okay with what I did. But I mean, you're not that far from being done at Stehekin. And she
Yeah.
dug me out of a rut, and I finished, and I'm thankful for that. I always will be. And it was like a testament to, like, I already knew at that point that I loved her and wanted to be with her, but she proved how strong she is. And, like, yeah, it was cool. It was great. And so, but yeah, as far as that section goes, though, aside from the way I was feeling physically and mentally, it's extremely beautiful. And there was one day, I don't know exactly where it was. It was in that section, but we were down in a valley, and it was all trees and this big, beautiful, old growth forest with these huge trees. But I was tired, and I just sat down, and we had decided to take a break, and we were going to go like 2 more miles to camp. But I was hungry. I was so hungry. I ate all of my food. I was eating other people's food, and I couldn't eat enough. Like, I couldn't physically eat enough to have enough energy, and then I was always constantly just hungry. So it sucked. But I was eating my food, and I just started to cry, like, complete lost it. And well, Skip and Pot Sticker and Ulf were there, but they had just left to go to camp. And I was just trying, like, while they were there, I was just trying to hold it together, because I didn't want to cry. But then it was just me and No Tape, and I I can be very, very vulnerable with her. And I just started crying. Like I was sad. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, I'm I'm sad because I'm in one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, but I'm too tired to enjoy it right now. And that's when I
Mm,
realized that yeah, through hiking is a beautiful thing and it's an epic experience. And I think anyone who wants to do it should do it. But you need to realize that like there might become a time where it's not everything you thought it was. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing because I learned so much about myself after that, and I learned so much about no tape after that, I would never like I wouldn't go back and change. I wouldn't go back and like make it so I had energy to push through the whole thing. I wouldn't change the
yeah.
fact that like I had to dig deep. I had to push my body past what I thought was actually capable because I learned a lot about myself. I learned that yeah, like you were literally down in the dumps and didn't want to go anymore, but you still did it. And I can look back now and I remember a lot more than I thought I did because I was just like a zombie walking through a lot of that. And I was listening to music
Mm,
and podcasts and head down a lot of times. And I would really, really try to enjoy the beauty, but it was hard because I was so tired. But when we got to Leavenworth, one of my trail connections, Billy, he lives in Leavenworth, and he had finished the trail already, so he offered to host us at his house, and so that was a really good morale
nice.
boost. It boosted my morale so much to do that, to stay with him and explore Leavenworth a little bit, but it was still tough. Like I still really was fatigued after that, but it got better, and then but then like you get to Stehekin afterwards, I believe, and I was right back into my rut again. But like it was a little morale boost in Leavenworth, and then Stehekin, I really wanted to because there was a fire closure right after that, and we were gonna
Yeah.
have to take a big detour, and I didn't want to do it, and so I said, why don't we just take the boat down Lake Chelan and go home? Well, I didn't. I was thinking go home, but I really said, let's go to Mazama and just hike from Hart's Pass. But
Gotcha.
eventually we decided just to go and see if because we heard the fire closure might be open. So we just hiked
Hmm.
from Cascade National Park up to the fire closure and there was no smoke anywhere. And we're like, well, we'd heard a bunch of hikers were going through, so we just went through and it was set to be open. It opened the next day. So we're like, yeah, don't do that. Don't do what we did, but we did it anyways. That was a morale boost because I was like, doing things I shouldn't, and that's always fun. So, anyways, but yeah, I wouldn't. Looking back, we probably shouldn't have done that, but there was no fire. Like the fire was out, and so,
Yeah.
but we got to Rainy Pass, and then we got up to Hart's Pass, and then for some reason, hiking from Rainy Pass to Hart's Pass just gave me this extra step, the second wind, and I wasn't tired anymore. All of a sudden, it was crazy. Like I should have been and nothing changed other than it was just a morale boost, I think, because it was beautiful and I knew that I was so close to the end, like less than 60 miles, and got to Hart's Pass, met up with everybody. We were able to hike to the terminus together. I was with No Tape, Skip, Pot Sticker, Forecast, and Ulf when we got to the northern terminus, and I was just on top of the world. It was amazing. It was so cool to get there. And yeah, it was like the last 3 days of Washington were some of the most epic and memorable days of my life. But in between that, man, there was some hard times.
Oh, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and being honest about that experience because, I feel like with anything that's time intensive or that's physically intensive, sometimes you do hit those walls, and I'm glad that you had somebody that was able to support you and kind of help you push through it. And how was it seeing the northern terminus when it came into view? Like, after all the experience that you've had, to see that, yeah, kind of take us to that moment.
Well, it was right before we got to it, maybe point 0.2 miles before the terminus. We stopped, and it was me, Skip, Pot Sticker, and No Tape, and we all walked to the terminus together. But it was kind of different because me and No Tape were going home after, but Skip,
Hmm.
Pot Sticker, and Ulf decided they were going to go back to the Sierra and do that section from Lake Tahoe to Kearsarge Pass that they didn't do. And so their adventure wasn't entirely finished. I mean, mine
Gotcha.
isn't entirely finished either, but for that year and that time period it was. And so for me and No Tape, it
Hmm.
had this finality to it. But for the other three, well, and Forecast was there too. He got there before us, but he was still there too. But like for those four, it wasn't the actual end. And so I feel for them because like they didn't have this overwhelming feeling of finality and finish like I.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't let that affect me at all. And honestly, I didn't really feel like it was over. And like, I didn't feel this, like, I mean, I felt really, really happy and it was exhilarating to see it. But it was actually like when I left the terminus, because I had to walk back to Harts Pass because I didn't get the Canada entry permit. And so me and Daniela, we
Okay.
walked back to Harts Pass together after we tagged the border. And but then Ulf did too because he didn't get a Canada entry permit either. But then Skip and Pot Sticker and Forecast did get a permit, so they went in because it was just a logistical thing they were gonna deal with for flipping back. But for me and No Tape, like and me especially, I didn't really feel like powerful emotions until walking back. But then it hit me like
Gotcha.
it really hit me like, man, like I'm done now. Like I still have to hike 30
Yeah.
miles, but I'm done. Like I'm no longer hiking. Like I'm hiking on the PCT, but I'm not hiking the PCT anymore. And yeah, it was a surreal feeling of accomplishment, joy, heartbreak, excitement, sadness, like all that combined because I was happy that I did it. I was excited that I did it. It was something that I'll be proud of for my whole life. The most memorable time of my life, bar none. But then I was sad that it was over. I had fallen in love with the lifestyle of being a thru hiker. I was sad that it was over, but at the same time, I was happy to, like, I get to go through my whole life having this experience behind me now. And that's very valuable to me. And I realized that while I was
Yeah.
hiking back to Harts Pass. And then while I was hiking back to Harts Pass, at first, the first few miles was very emotional. And then it turned into, man, I wish I didn't have to hike all the way to Harts Pass. And then it turned into, I'm thankful that I get a hike back to Harts Pass because I have, 30 miles to just reflect and to just, because I got really good at meditating and I spent a lot of time listening to music, sure, but I also spent a very long time just no music, just listening to my feet, listening to nature and just meditating and trying to be as present as I could be. And so I actually got like I feel like meditating is a skill that I developed on the PCT. And it was like moving meditation where I was just trying to be part of the landscape and just move through it and try to minimize distractions that weren't natural. And so I really like honed in on like the feelings I was feeling and I became grateful that I had this 30 miles of reflection. Looking back, if I do the PCT again and I have a candidate entry permit, I'm not doing. I'm gonna hike back to Harts Pass, just because of that time.
Okay.
The time to reflect was so valuable. Like I learned, like I almost had like a flashback of the entire. Like it didn't really, but it seemed like I thought about the whole trail and like the adventures leading up to that pinnacle moment of finishing, and then I was able to reflect on it deeply while I hiked back to Harts Pass, and it was a beautiful like physically it was beautiful to be there and see the sights, but it was like what was going on in my head and was beautiful as well. And so like that was a really cool hike back to Harts Pass. And then I hiked with No Tape the last mile or so to the pass the next day because we hiked partially back camped and then hiked the rest of the way back the next day. And like getting to Harts Pass the second time and then hitchhiking back to Mazama, like that just turned into this hectic thing. But there was that time period between, tagging the border and then actually entering like the real world again. It was like very valuable to me. One of the best days on the PCT was actually the day after I finished because it was like just reflecting on the whole adventure while I was hiking backwards. I was hiking southbound and I was getting off trail. I was going home finally. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a powerful time. I would, if anybody's hikes the PCT in the future that listens to this, I would recommend hiking back to Harts Pass just for that reason. Yeah, it's kind of a pain. There's more logistics, but trust me, like the logistics that you have to go through are worth the reflection time that you get. You get to go over Woody Pass again. You get to see all those things again from a different view. And it was perfect, honestly.
Oh man. Yeah, great tip, Riley. And I appreciate you sharing as much as you did on social media and just taking us on the journey with you through the ups and downs and, the Sierras to the Pacific Northwest, you really had some amazing experiences. And, you've shared about other people's trail names and how they got their trail names, but can you share with us how you got your trail name, Fry Pocket?
Yeah, I think there's earlier on in the desert, like at Mount Laguna and a couple other places, like hiker hunger hasn't hit you yet. And so when I remember there was a restaurant in Mount Laguna, I think it was called the Pine House or something, but I ordered a burger with French fries, and I ate the hamburger and I had a soft drink and I drank it, but then I wasn't hungry at the time for the fries. And so I put the fries in the soft drink cup, and then I put that in my water bottle pocket of my backpack. And so then I can't remember if it was Hair Tie or Ulf or somebody, but they're like, "Oh, you got a little pocket for your fries." I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of handy," because then I could just eat fries while I was hiking, reach back and grab them. And then it was at Warner Springs, and most everybody had a trail name by that point. Gravedigger had his, Old Faithful had his, a few others had theirs, and so they were like, "Riley, we have a proposal." I'm like, "Oh no, I know what this is." They're like, "We propose that your trail name is Fry Pocket," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll roll with it." And then I ended up just really liking it, so I'm a fan of Fry Pocket. I changed my Instagram handle to Fry Pocket, and yeah, it's a good trail name. Pretty unique, I guess. At first I didn't think it was that unique, but like everybody I told my trail name to on trail was like, that's a really unique and creative one. I was like, I guess it is. It seems to me like yours is more unique and creative than mine, but whatever. So yeah, I'm Fry Pocket.
I like the origin story, Riley.
Yeah.
And, one thing I'm curious about, because, you did the planning, the resupply boxes and everything. And, food, whether you're a through hiker or a day hiker, packer, it's one of those motivating things. And I gotta ask, what was your favorite trail meals? And then also, which ones are off the menu for a while where like you've had your fill?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard. The things I didn't get sick of were like ramen noodles, ironically. Like the north
Mm.
sides, some of them are fine, but most of them I got sick of, and I had to go through like phases with them. But for some reason, ramen noodles with pulled pork packet from Walmart, man, that hits. Put some mayonnaise in, or mustard and
Okay.
mayonnaise in there too, salt and pepper. Doritos, wavy Lays, absolutely are a pristine hiking snack. The trick with, if you're through hiking or just backpacking or day hiking for that matter, the trick with chips, bring your long handled spoon that you use to eat your meal with, and you just crush the chips in the bag so that they take up less volume, and then you can take 2 or 3 bags of chips, and then you just eat them with a spoon out of the bag. It's perfect and tastes the
I
same, and
like
it's
that.
just more efficient. And then I started carrying ketchup, and I'd put ketchup on my Lays and eat them with ketchup because I mean it's just like fries with ketchup, but just crunchy. And your standards
Yeah.
definitely go lower when you're through hiking, so I don't know if I would do that at home, but when I was through hiking, man, that was amazing snack. You know, Gummy bears are absolutely a must-have. I never got sick of them. High chews are probably my favorite sugary snack. Off limits, tortillas. I will never ever eat a tortilla unless somebody else makes a burrito for me. I don't need that anymore. Salami, like the only salami I eat is elk salami that I either make myself or have somebody make that's from an elk that got harvested. I don't do the store-bought salami anymore. I ate too much pepperoni and
Okay.
salami. Cheeses. I love cheese. I'll never not love cheese, so I never got sick of cheese. Yeah, but off limit as far as like north sides go, basically any of the noodle north sides, I don't need to eat those anymore. Peanut butter, no thanks. Almond
Oh, wow.
Almond butter's fine, like the Justin's almond butter that has like cinnamon, that's fine. But peanut butter,
Hmm.
I don't need peanut butter, whether that's a peanut butter cookie or a peanut butter granola bar or a spoonful of peanut butter. Nope, I do not need to eat that anymore. Maybe that'll change, but it's been 2.5, almost 3 months since I've been off trail, and I still like peanut butter's not, I'm not eating that. So that's about it. I mean, for the
and
most things though, I'm fine with still, I think. But yeah.
and Riley, you documented and you shared with us online on social media some wide range of, wildlife encounters, from seeing a bear, scoot away, to marmots, to some other critters. What were some of your more memorable ones that you got to encounter on and off the trail?
The most memorable wildlife encounter on trail was in the desert, and I can't remember the name of the pass. It was just one of those little dirt road passes it was after Tehachapi, and it was after Ridgecrest too, because I think Hair Tie and Thrift had gone home. So it was before Kennedy Meadows, and it was after we got out of all the wind turbine stuff, but it was in that general area. But we were at this pass and I had phone service, and so I called my mom to FaceTime when we were at camp, and we had got to camp a couple hours before it was dark. So I was sitting there away from camp, but not too far from camp. I was right off a dirt road, maybe 50 yards, just in some of those Joshua trees. And I was talking on the phone, just sitting on the ground, like I always do, and you're always sitting on the ground. And so I was just talking away to my mom and sister about stories, and I felt something like rub against my butt, but I didn't really think anything of it for a second. And I look out of the corner of my eye and I see like the body of a snake slithering from my right to my left, and it was like touching my butt as I'm sitting. And then I look to my left and I see the head, and it's a rattlesnake, like a big one too, like 3 or 4 feet long rattlesnake. And so I'm FaceTiming my mom and sister, and I'm pretty sure I said a few things I shouldn't say around them, but I did anyways, because there's a rattlesnake like right there. So I get up and like run away, and then the rattlesnake goes. I was sitting right next to sagebrush or whatever type of bush there is, and it goes into the bush, and I immediately was like, rattlesnake, I'm fine, gotta go. Like hang up, get my phone or video up, and like record it because it's in the bush now. And yeah, that was, oh man, that was crazy. And I'm not scared of snakes, but how can you not be a little nervous in that situation, right? And
Most
but
definitely.
I grabbed my stuff and like backed away and videoed it for a minute, and then it started rattling, so I got out of there, and then I went and told. Well, it was funny because me and No Tape and Ulf were cowboy camping like 200 yards from there. So we're like, should we cowboy camp tonight or should we set up the tent? We just cowboy camped anyways, but like, whew, yeah, that was quite the experience.
Yeah, that got your
Yeah, I got my blood
heart
pumping.
pumping.
Yeah, but I got it on video. I didn't get like video it like touching me, but like I could like, this is where I was sitting, and this is the rattlesnake, and like zoomed in on it. It's like right there. I was like,
Yeah.
oh god. So that was pretty wild. I don't want that to happen again, but hey, if you're
Yeah.
gonna hike the PCT, I think most people don't have experiences like that, so don't get too overworked about it. But I know some people are really scared of snakes and probably don't want to hear that story, but it happened to me. I never heard of it happen to anybody else. I mean, there was snake encounters people would have, but I don't think it's that big of a worry.
Yeah.
You definitely need to be aware of snakes in the desert, but running out of water and tripping and rolling an ankle is probably more dangerous than snakes. So
Yeah.
what do I know? More wildlife encounters. Like in Northern California, the deer just want to lick your pee. So if you're peeing on the ground, the deer are gonna come try to lick it up because they're just want. Yeah,
Um,
that that's weird, but whatever.
it's spreading amongst the wildlife, Riley, because up in the enchantments, the mountain goats do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of weird around like the Trinity Alps area. The deer just they don't act like deer should act. And they're just right on the
Yeah.
trail, and they probably like want to lick you because you're sweat and salt and everything. But they was I heard stories of hikers where they would chew on the cork of their trail or their trekking poles because of the salt from their sweat. That never
Wow.
happened to me, but yeah, the deer are pretty aggressive in Northern California in a couple sections. And then in what was that wilderness area called? Three Finger Jack, which is in Oregon, next to Bend, kind of. There's mountain goats
Mhm.
right off the trail that we saw. They were cool. There was probably 30 of them, not far off the trail. So
Wow.
we stopped and enjoyed those for a while. It was really, really cool to see them. And then in Washington, the marmots are so cool. And when we were in Washington, I actually wanted to research this, but I haven't researched it yet. The noise they make that screaming noise. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm like, is that like a mating call or what are they doing? Like we heard that from Probably from White's Pass north, there was marmots a lot of times. And I got some really cool videos of them, and they're really cute and enjoyable. So the marmots are something to look forward to in Washington.
Now, Riley, you've shared with us, slowly easing back into just off the trail life and everyday life. Can you share what your experience has been now that you've kind of got back to work, and maybe what's on the horizon for you for 2024? Is there any upcoming through hikes that are maybe catching your attention?
As far as like getting off trail, No Tape, her visa expired about a week after we got done. So she came to Utah to visit my family and see where I live, and she liked it here. And that was cool to share where I'm from with her. And then after she went home, that was really hard. Actually, the hardest part about ending the PCT wasn't actually leaving the trail. It was having to say goodbye to my best friend that I hiked with the whole trail. So, but then we talk every day on FaceTime. She's actually probably going to call me in like 9 minutes because it's 4:30 in the morning for her now. She wakes up to go to work and she calls me before she goes to work on FaceTime. So,
Oh, right on.
but yeah, we stay in touch as close as we can, and we want to be together. So we're trying to figure out all those problems. She's from a different country and 8-hour time difference, and it's just another adventure. But we're built for adventure, so we're gonna figure it out, and it'll take some patience. But I don't have any doubt that I want to be with her my whole life. So we're gonna make it happen. So that's what I'm up to now. I spent a lot of time hunting after the PCT and canyoneering, but now I realize, well, all right, like my savings are up and it's time to go back to work. So I started work a week ago. I've been to work for a week and a half now, I guess. I don't know, I don't like it, but I'm back to the same company I was at. They welcomed me back with open arms, which is really cool. Actually, before I even flew home, I was in Seattle at the hostel. We were staying at a hostel outside of Pike's Place Market, and we were just getting ready to leave to go to the airport. And my boss, the owner of the company, calls me just to congratulate me about finishing because he saw that I had finished on Instagram.
Oh, right on.
And he called. He didn't even bring work up at all. He's like, "Hey, just telling you congratulations. I followed you on your journey, and I think what you did is really awesome." And he's like, well, he did mention work. He said, if you're ready to come back to work, just call. That's all he said. He didn't pressure me to come back to work, and that was really cool. I actually was thinking about going to work for someone different, but after that call and how gracious he was, I was like, you know what? I want to work for somebody like that. So
yeah,
yeah.
Right
But yeah,
on.
now I'm back to work. I'm trying to save money, and my main motivation and my main goal right now is to be with No Tape again, whether that on a week-long, trip to the Netherlands to see her, and then in the future more when we get paperwork and government documents figured out more permanently, maybe one day. And we're working on that, but it's logistically challenging for sure. But that's what I'm up to now. As far as big adventures outside of that ahead, I'm going to do Machu Picchu in May. My whole family's going, and No Tape is also coming with us.
Epic.
So, and then after that, I still have 225 miles of the Sierra to do. So I would love to do that in 2024. Don't know if I'm going to make it happen or not, but we're going to try. Me and Daniela are going to do that together. And then in the future,
Nice.
I have a desire to do the Continental Divide Trail. I haven't really thought too seriously about it yet, but it's on the docket for the next 5 years sometime. And then I just want to keep hiking, keep canyoneering, and keep hunting, and just keep adventuring. So that's what I'm up to.
Right on, Riley. Man, thank you so much for giving us. I know this is just a taste of your experience because there's way more experiences that you've encountered on the trail when you were hiking the PCT, but I really appreciate you sharing the moments that you could share with us today. I want to leave this ending to just give you an opportunity to thank, your trail family, anybody that supported you, trail angels, but really give you this opportunity to give a shout out or give thanks to the people that are important in your life, whether it was on the PCT or off the PCT.
Oh, there's so many people. I got to thank my trail family. So Boomerang, Old Faithful, Neo, Sasquatch, Skip, Pot Sticker, Bob, Forecast, Hair Tie, Thrift, and there's countless other people that I met out there that are amazing. I just thank them for being amazing people, and I'm so glad I met them, and I'm so glad I was able to experience the PCT with them, and I mean, I'll be friends with them for life. We might not get together and see each other very often, but they're always friends. As far as trail angels, there was two in particular that stand out. Ken, who lives in Agua Dulce, he his brother his brother's from Washington, lives in Bellingham or somewhere, but I met his brother once at this hunting event a couple of years ago in Montana. It was like this, I don't even know. It was like a school, I guess. We went and learned from some profound hunters about things, whatever. But it was a summit, I guess is what they called it. But I met this guy's brother, and he's quite a bit older than me. He's 40s, 50s. I didn't know we had that much in common other than hunting, but stayed in contact with his brother. And then when Ken's brother, heard I was doing the PCT, he's like, "Oh, my brother lives right next to the PCT in Agua Dulce. You should link up with him when you go through there." So when I got to Agua Dulce, Ken and his wife hosted me, Hair Tie Thrift, and it was awesome. And Ulf too. And he was amazing. Hot tub, cooked us dinner, cooked us breakfast, let us shower, do laundry, and it was amazing. So he is so cool. One of my favorite people on planet Earth is Ken. And then when I was in the Sierra, I was texting Ken on the inReach, just giving him updates because he loves the Sierra Mountains and he knew we were going in. So I was just giving him brief updates. And I was like, "Hey, like I'm going over Kearsarge Pass tomorrow." And he's like, "Wait, you're going to Onion Valley?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I'll be there tomorrow. The road just opened," and which was good to know because we had no idea if the road was open. We thought we were gonna have to road walk all the way to Bishop, or not Bishop, but it would have been Highway 395 to hitch to Bishop. But I had no idea the road was open. That's just how through hiking is that time of year. You just figure it out as you go. But he's like, "Yeah, they just opened it." So Ken picked us back up, took us to Bishop, which was amazing. So we didn't have to hitchhike, didn't have to worry about a ride. So he is awesome. He actually is an author, and I wish, let me look up if you got a second here. I need to shout out his book because he is an amazing man. And he wrote a book called Letters to My Son in Prison. And I want to shout him out because he has an amazing story. His son went to prison because he overdosed and got in a car accident and killed somebody. And the book is about how I haven't read it, but he's given me, told me about it in person and everything. But he wrote about how he had to heal himself and his relationship with his son and his relationship with his wife and everything. And he wrote about this. So I would recommend checking that book out. He's an amazing person. So, anyways, the book's called Letters to My Son in Prison: How a Father and Son Found Forgiveness for an Unforgivable Crime. So, Ken Guidroz is his name. So shout out him. That's Trail Angel. There's another lady who lives in Sisters, Oregon, named Shari, and she owns a gear shop in Sisters called Hiking Peaks. She's from my hometown of Wellsville, Utah, and she found out.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, she found out through some family friends of mine who she's related to that I was doing the PCT, and she was absolutely thrilled that finally, after she's lived in Sisters, Oregon for years and has a gear shop that caters to PCT hikers. And so she's pretty involved in the PCT community. For years and years and years, nobody from Wellsville, Utah ever hiked the PCT. And so she was so happy that I was coming through. So she hosted us at her house when we were going southbound. And then when we flipped from Lake Tahoe back up to do Washington, she actually let us stay at her house one more time. So she's amazing. Same with her husband, Paul. Her husband, Paul, he just called me Wellsville because I'm from Wellsville. He didn't call me Fry Pocket, but it was cool. It was cool to have a little taste of home so far away from home. So yeah, those two Trail Angels stand out amongst everyone else, even though there was amazing Trail Angels throughout the whole trail that helped us, and the trail would be very difficult to do it without the Trail Angels, and this outside support, the kindness of strangers on the PCT is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had, and I mean, it's kind of a cliche thing to say, but it restored my faith in humanity, just seeing how many strangers are just willing to help you because, I mean, they just respect what you're doing, I think, and they are curious. They want to be part of your story. And if you're a thru hiker, you're doing something pretty profound. As thru hikers, we need to respect them. We need to pay it forward. We need to treat them with kindness, and we need to treat the towns and the trail with love and make sure we take care of that so that this experience can continue for the hikers behind you.
Yeah.
The trail angels, I mean, they're amazing. But those two in particular, Ken and Shari, they stand out just because they helped us so much. So
right on, Riley. Well, yeah, shout both of them out. Thank you so much, man. It has been a pleasure hearing about your experiences. And, I'm just going to plant this seed, Riley. I think you and Danielle should record a podcast about your guys' experiences, because I think that would be just a unique perspective that you don't hear too much on podcasts, because typically it's one individual's, take on his experience. But to have somebody that shared the trail for so long with you, to have those two experiences, I think would make for an amazing podcast.
I'll consider it. Podcasts that I tried to do, it never happened. It was hard enough to just do the actual thru hike logistics, let alone now if I had that podcast started before the trail, and I would have probably been able to do it, but trying to figure out a podcast and thru hiking was a little too overwhelming for me. But I do definitely want to keep doing or try to start that podcast again post trail. But yeah, actually that's a good idea. Now, if you want to interview us and have the honors, I mean, we can probably work something out. So yeah.
Yeah, because I know we missed out on so much more stories from on the trail. Yeah. So that might be a good thing to link up, especially if we can all do it virtually, if we're still in different parts of the world. But yeah, Riley, really appreciate you coming back on, brother, and I wish you nothing but the best and success with work life, with Danielle, and just with canyoneering and hiking, man.
Well, thank you so much. This was fun. I love talking about PCT. 2 hours and I didn't even scratch the surface, it seems like.
Thank you once again to Riley for coming back on the podcast. Be sure to follow him on Instagram at FryPocket. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. Happy trails, everyone. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.